When life hurts, truly hurts, the pain can feel like a permanent resident, an uninvited guest that has somehow acquired a key to every room in your soul. It shows up in many forms: the sudden silence after a loved one is gone, the betrayal that rewrites your understanding of trust, the dream that crumbled despite your tightest grip, or the quiet desperation of a morning where getting out of bed feels like climbing a mountain with broken bones. In those moments, the world does not just look different, it feels different. As if the very air has changed its weight. People speak to you, but their voices seem to come from behind a thick pane of glass. Joy, even the memory of it, becomes a foreign language you once spoke fluently, but now can barely remember a single word of. First, I want to say something that might sound strange in a world obsessed with fixing and moving on. When life hurts, your pain is not a problem to be solved. It is a fact to be honored. We live in a culture that is terrified of discomfort. We have pills for sadness, distractions for loneliness, motivational quotes for grief, and timelines for healing. You should be over it by now. The world whispers, sometimes through well-meaning friends, sometimes through your own inner critic. But pain does not follow a calendar. It does not punch a clock. It has its own rhythm, its own tone intelligence. When you try to bypass your suffering, you do not conquer it. You merely postpone it, pushing it deeper into your bones, where it will fester and emerge later as anger, numbness, or disease. Let me tell you a truth that no one tells you in the middle of heartbreak. The capacity to feel deep pain is the same capacity that allows you to feel deep love, deep joy, deep meaning. You cannot sever one without numbing the other. People who have never truly hurt often lack depth. They float on the surface of life, never knowing the strange, paradoxical gift that comes from being shattered and still choosing to continue. When life hurts, you are not broken. You are being broken open. And there is a difference. Broken means something is ruined, useless, beyond repair. Broken open means the shell that held you, the comfortable assumptions, the illusions of control, the belief that you could arrange life neatly and it would obey, has cracked. And through those cracks, something new might enter. Light, perhaps, or at least the possibility of light. Consider the Japanese art of kintsugi, where broken pottery is repaired with gold-dusted lacquer. The cracks are not hidden, they are highlighted, made beautiful. The object becomes more valuable, not less, because of its history of breaking. You are that pottery. Every scar you carry tells a story of survival. Every tear you have shed watered a seed of compassion that would never have grown otherwise. The person you are becoming through this pain is not weaker than the person you were before. They are more real, more honest, more capable of sitting beside someone else in their darkness without flinching. Because you know, you have been there, and knowing changes everything. But I will not lie to you and say that pain is always a gift. Sometimes it is just pain. Sometimes it is senseless, cruel, undeserved. Sometimes the only honest prayer you can utter is not a thank you for this lesson, but simply a help. And that prayer is enough. That cry, raw and unpolished, reaching toward whatever might be listening, or toward no one at all, that is not a failure of faith. That is faith itself, stripped of all pretense. The deepest spiritual tradition understand the Psalms. The writers scream at God. They accuse, they doubt, they demand. And those raw, angry, honest words are considered sacred. Why? Because honesty is the foundation of any real relationship, including the one with life itself. When life hurts, your first task is not to find meaning. Your first task is survive. And surviving looks different for everyone. For some, it means curling up in a ball and letting the tears come for hours. For others, it means methodically putting one foot in front of the other, making a bed, eating a piece of toast, drinking water, the small mundane acts that tether you to the world when your soul is floating away. For still others, it means reaching out and saying the hardest 3 words in the English language. Oh, please, if you are hurting and you have been silent, hear me now. You were never meant to carry this alone. Isolation is pain's best friend. It whispers that no one would understand, that you are burdening others, that you should be stronger. Those whispers are lies. Reach out to a friend, a family member, a therapist, a helpline. Not because they will fix you, they cannot, but because the simple act of being witness in your pain, of having someone say, I see you, I hear you, and I am not running away, is itself a form of healing. There is a myth that healing means returning to who you were before the hurt. Let me free you from that myth right now. You will never go back. And that is not a tragedy. It is a transformation. A caterpillar does not become a butterfly by repairing its old skin. It dissolves entirely inside a cocoon, becoming a kind of living soup before emerging as something unrecognizable from what it once was. When life hurts, you are in the cocoon. Everything feels like it's falling apart because, in a sense, it is. The old structures that held your identity are melting, and this is terrifying. But please, do not rush this process. Do not let anyone tell you to stay positive when what you need is to stay honest. Do not paper over your grief with platitudes. Let the melting happen. Let the old self die if it needs to die. Because on the other side of that dissolution is not emptiness. It is the possibility of wings. You have more string than you know. I do not say this as a hollow encouragement. I say this as a fact proven by the very breath you are taking right now. Think about it. Every single person listening to this voice has already survived 100% of their worst days so far. Every single one. The days you thought would kill you, you are still here. The nights you thought would never end, you saw the dawn. Not because you were invincible, but because you were more resilient than you gave yourself credit for. Resilience is not bouncing back like nothing happened. Resilience is continuing to exist even when everything inside you screams for exit. It is the heart that keeps beating without your permission. It is the lungs that feel an empty, a stubborn rhythm that refuses to quit even when your spirit has surrendered. I want to share something that a hospice nurse once said about the dying. She noted that in their final moments, no one ever says they wish they had worked more hours or earned more money. They speak of love. Love given, love received, love withheld, love regretted. When life hurts, that hurts too. Because pain has a way of clarifying what matters. It strips away the trivial, the performative, the busyness that fills our days. When you are suffering, you do not care about your social media feed or the opinion of an acquaintance who judged you unfairly. You care about real things, the hand holding yours, the presence that does not try to fix you, the quiet understanding that says, I am here. Pain teaches you who your real people are. It teaches you what you actually value. And that clarity, hard one though it is a gift that comfort could never give you. What do you do when the pain feels endless? When you have tried everything, therapy, medication, exercise, meditation, journaling, positive thinking, and the darkness remains. First, you acknowledge that some pain does not have a quick fix. Some chapters of life are not meant to be closed quickly. They are meant to be lived through, slowly, day by day, sometimes minute by minute. You do not have to be okay. You do not have to pretend, you just have to keep breathing. I remember reading about Viktor Frankl, a psychiatrist who survived the concentration camps. He wrote that the people who survived were not necessarily the strongest physically, but those who could find some tiny thread of meaning to hold on to, even if that meaning was simply the hope of seeing a loved one again, or the decision to maintain dignity in the face of degradation. He said, oh, when we are no longer able to change a situation, we are challenged to change ourselves. That is not easy. It is not fair, but it is real. Sometimes when life hurts, the most revolutionary act you can perform is to smile at a stranger, to buy yourself a flower, to cook one good meal, to cry openly without apology, to say a no to an obligation that drains you, to say yes to an hour of rest. These are not escapes from pain. They are acts of rebellion against despair. Despair wants you to believe that nothing matters, that every effort is futile, that you might as well give up. But every small act of care toward yourself or toward another is a slap in the face of despair. It says you do not get the final word. And despair hates that. Despair thrives on inaction, on paralysis, on the belief that things will never change. Action does not have to be grand. It just has to be real. Let me speak to those of you who are hurting because someone you love left, whether through death, betrayal, or simple growing apart. The absence they left behind is not empty. It is full of memory, of love that has nowhere to go, of words you never said and conversations you will never have. That fullness is a kind of presence. You do not have to let go in the way people tell you to. You do not have to erase them. You can carry them with you, not as a weight that drags you down, but as a gravity that reminds you of what matters. Grief is not a problem to be solved. It is a relationship to be integrated. The love you felt does not end because the person is gone. It changes form. It changes form. It becomes part of the architecture of your soul. And that is not weakness. That is the deepest strength there is. Finally, I want to leave you with this thought. When life hurts, you are in good company. Every human who has ever lived with an open heart has known this pain. The Buddha said a life is suffering, not because life is only suffering, but because suffering is woven into the fabric of existence. To be alive is to love, and to love is to risk loss. To be alive is to have hopes, and to have hopes is to risk disappointment. To be alive is to build, and to build is to watch some things crumble. But here is the secret that pain tries to hide from you. The same weave that holds suffering also holds joy. Joy, you cannot have one without the possibility of the other. And the fact that you are hurting means you have loved, you have hoped, you have cared enough to be wounded. That is not a sign of failure. That is a sign of having lived fully. So if your life hurts right now, I am not going to tell you to cheer up. I am not going to give you 5 easy steps to happiness. I am going to say, stay, just stay. Stay in this life with this pain for one more day, and tomorrow try again. Let yourself be held by the small things, the warmth of tea, the weight of a blanket, the sound of rain, the face of someone who is glad to see you. You do not have to be grateful for the pain. You do not have to pretend it is a blessing. You only have to keep breathing, keep reaching, keep being honest about where you are. And somewhere in that stubborn, imperfect, courageous act of staying, you will find that you are not only surviving, you are becoming someone new. Someone who knows the depths and can therefore appreciate the heights. Someone who has been broken open and is still here, still human, still capable of love. And that, more than any false comfort, is the truth that will carry you through. When life hurts, you do not need answers. You need company, honesty, and time. You have all 3 here, in this moment, in the quiet space between these words. Breathe. You are still here, and that is everything.